Good morning. I am Dr. Sarvani Shankar Panigrahi. Would like to teach you a poem to John Keats' poet at springtime by County Cullen. County Cullen is a famous poet who remembers John Keats for his writing during the springtime in the poem to John Keats' poet at springtime. Let us discuss about the poem. This particular poem to John Keats' poet at springtime by County Cullen is a beautiful poem that acknowledges Keats' influence on the speaker. The speaker notes that Keats wrote the most impressive and influential springtime poetry during his life. He addresses the poet throughout, describing how special this one spring season is and how he is no longer able to keep himself quiet about it. He presents numerous images while always returning to Keats himself and what he learned from the poet. Structure and form of the poem. To John Keats' poet at springtime by County Cullen is a 6-stanza poem that is separated into uneven stanzas. The first stanza contains 10 lines, the second 7 lines, the third 7 lines, the fourth 12 lines, the fifth 4 lines, and the sixth 6 lines. The first stanza follows a rhyme scheme of A B A B, C D C D, E E. The second and the third stanza has the rhyme scheme A B A B, A C C. The fourth stanza has the rhyme scheme A B A B, C D C D, E F E F. The fifth stanza rhyme scheme is A B B, and the final stanza rhymes is A B B C C. Now let us recite the poem. The stanza 1. I cannot hold my peace, John Keats. There never was a spring like this. It is an echo that repeats my last year's song and next year's bliss. I know, in spite of all men say of beauty, you have felt her most. Yeah, even in your grave her way is said, poor, troubled, lyric ghost. Spring never was so fair and dear as beauty makes her seem this year. Again I am reciting. I cannot hold my peace, John Keats. There never was a spring like this. It is an echo that repeats my last year's song and next year's bliss. I know, in spite of all men say of beauty, you have felt her most. Yeah, even in your grave her way is said, poor, troubled, lyric ghost. Spring never was so fair and dear as beauty makes her seem this year. Now let us do the explanation of the poem. In the first stanza of this poem, the speaker uses a literary device known as an apostrophe. The speaker addresses someone who cannot hear them. In this case, because John Keats is dead. Because John Keats is dead, but still then the speaker is addressing John Keats as if John Keats is live. He speaks to Keats throughout the poem, hoping to clearly express his experiences during a particularly beautiful spring. He is initially reticent, saying he gave in to his desire to talk about spring. He had tried to resist, as Keats' springtime poetry is the best that has ever been written in the English language. He also tells that he knows the man has felt her most. He knows more about beauty than anyone else ever has. Even in his grave, he knows more. He addresses the poet again, telling him that this year's spring is fair and dear in a way that it has never been before. So that is here the poet expresses the same type of situation what Keats had already has experienced during his lifetime while writing the poetry. Now the literary devices used in the first stanza of the poem, alliteration. As you know, alliteration is repetition of the consonant sound which is found in the first stanza of the poem, that is occurring the repetition of the consonant sound at the beginning of multiple words like song, spite, spring in lines 4 and 5 of the stanza of the poem. So, as we have already discussed, in that particular poem, spring, song, and spite. You see, the particular letter consonant having the consonant sound repeats. That is why alliteration has been seen in this particular poem. So, we shall discuss the next part of the poem in our next class. Thank you.